I was recently pulled in by a post by Wings of Pegasus that was titled, "If you can't connect with most modern day music, this is probably why." A fine bit of smart clickbaiting of the sort that I should try more of. As it turns out, the actual video was a breakdown of Cher's notoriously awful Believe, the track that effectively launched the auto-tune era, and is actually quite interesting. I posted a link below for those who want to check it out. But beyond the technical breakdown of the song, the most interesting point in the video, a point I suddenly found myself thinking about just before it was made, which perhaps speaks more to how the video was taking us in a certain direction rather than my predictive skills, is that while the differences between tribes and generations used to be about style, it's now about sound. Production techniques, if you like. It might not seem like a massive difference at first, but it is. It's huge, and it's something that only exists because of auto-tune and pitch correction technology. A difference in taste in musical style has always meant that yes, pop fans didn't like punk or metal because the music itself was not to their taste. It was too loud, too abrasive. Rock fans found pop too fluffy. Punks hated metal and metalers hated punk because of minor musical differences that no one else could even see, and major fashion differences. And significantly older generations didn't like the music that their kids listened to because it was stylistically different from the music that they enjoyed. And because these new musical sounds and genres also came with strange new looks that their kids would adopt. None of this, however, was because of an actual shift in how music was created. Yes, there have been production trends. The awful everything and the kitchen sink of the Fairlight era in the 1980s has certainly not aged well. If you look at some of that stuff, Yes's Owner of a Lonely Heart stands out to me as a good example simply because you can make a direct comparison to that band's earlier music that, for all its many faults, doesn't sound as abrasively dated in production style. The lurch towards sounding modern now makes the 1980s tracks feel very clumsy and desperate. But that's still a style. A musical choice as much as down-tuned guitars, orchestral backing tracks or stripped-back instrumentation, rather than an all-pervasive sound that comes not because it's a trend but because it's just how things are done now. It's something that saves money and it makes the artist sound interchangeable and often better or more palatable to the widest audience than many of them are. It means that music becomes even less about music than it ever was. Less about fashion too, because even the most extravagant pop star now just seems to be wearing a stage outfit, a contrived costume rather than the clothes that their fans will copy. It's now just music, performed by easily controlled pretty people who also care more for money than music and feel like corporate drones designed to be as inoffensive as possible. Everything is effectively fed through the same effects programs, so of course it all sounds alike. And rock fans of a certain age, let's say anyone over 30, will even find modern commercial rock music just as off-putting as pop because everything is being put through the same filters. It's not a genre issue, it's a generation issue. But not one that we've really seen before. Because everything really does sound the same now. The production polish strips music of any individuality and variation. That might sound like the traditional complaint of an old man, but it seems the kids agree with me, because music no longer seems all that important to younger people. When I was a teenager, everything was very tribal. At some point, a form of music, or perhaps all the things that went along with that music, spoke to you on a level deeper than any words could ever express, and that became your identity. Not for everyone, of course. There have always been the kids who just listen to whatever is popular and inane and inoffensive. But even they were arguably part of a scene in their own way. But for many teenagers, the music you listened to dictated the clothes you wore, your hairstyle, even your general outlook on life. It was all consuming. Music drove fashion, and fashion also drove music in a constant mating ritual. Goths, new romantics, punks, metalers, crusties, hip-hop kids, ravers, and God knows how many other trends with various shelf lives dominated youth culture. You'd see all these tribes on the streets, making each group immediately recognizable. Now everyone looks the same. You walk down the street, there's no distinction between the odd band t-shirt, and even that's no longer an accurate signifier since Ramones, Nirvana and Motorhead t-shirts began fast fashion wear in H&M and Primark, worn by people who have no idea that these names and logos even belong to bands. The most offensive aspect of youth culture now seems to be its absolute blandness. Now, obviously, I'm generalising. Yes, there are acts that still step outside the mainstream. Yes, there are still the kids, and let's say that's anyone from mid-teens to late 20s, who will identify heavily with music and the look and style of that music. But isn't it all rather retro now? Are there really youth movements that are being driven by new music and new fashion in the way that they used to be? Is there any chance of the sort of musical and cultural upheaval that we had with punk or the rave scene? Or will everything be quickly and seamlessly absorbed into the bland, controlled mainstream of identikit production? If the best we have now is Brat Summer, a desperately manufactured publicity stunt for Charlie XCX, then God help us. Any differences that we do have now seem more driven by identity politics, the new tribalism perhaps. Certain looks have been adopted by different socio-political groups, the wokes and the anti-wokes alike, who seem to be the mods and rockers of the modern world. Neither side seems particularly interested in music though. If they do like music, it's again based more on politics than sound. Perhaps because that's where the real variation now exists. Music is liked or loathed because of what it says rather than because of what it is. Or else it just becomes absorbed as a mere part, not a major part, of an identity rather than the central element. In a way, it's not a terrible thing. There were lots of problems related to musical tribalism, and it definitely seems better that people can listen to whatever they like, regardless of what label is given to it, and dress how they choose. Maybe there's less chance that people will be beaten to death for looking like goths now. Though I rather suspect that anyone who does adopt a look will probably stand out even more now to feral little shits looking for somebody to victimise. But it does rather suggest that music no longer seems all that important to younger generations. Part of that is probably because there's so many competing distractions for their attention now, gaming, social media, and so on. It's also because music has been progressively devalued through file sharing and the decline of physical media. Downloaded files just don't have the same desirability and collectability that often drives an obsession to begin with. These days, you're barely even aware of what most acts you might listen to even look like, so why would you copy them? We also live in a world of ever-increasing blandness where stepping outside the mainstream has become rarer and rarer. Everything now is increasingly homogenized in terms of how we look, what we wear, how we behave. Why should we think that the same wouldn't be true about what we listen to? But I wonder if this is also because music has increasingly been stripped of the things that made it unique and a source of passion. When everything is the same, polished within an inch of its life, regardless of genre and with the exact same production techniques, every moment of individuality and humanity removed in favour of flawless mechanical perfection, it just becomes product. People might still consume that product in much the same way that they buy soda pop and crisps and watch movies that are nothing but 3 hours of empty CGI eye candy. But it's not going to inspire the same devotion and lifestyle immersion that it used to. When everything becomes the same, it ceases to have any importance. Popular music, in the way that we all used to love it, is dead. If you agree with this theory, if you disagree with this theory, whatever your thoughts are, feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more of this wildly opinionated nonsense about music, alongside reviews, deep dives into band careers and so on, then make sure to subscribe to Desperate Living Music and hit the like button. Let's build this channel up, shall we? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails.